During this phase, you have two different
That's
types of
actually
ads to
badass.
deal with. Volatile droplets will fixate on random players within your raid and explode whenever they come into contact with any player at all. By stacking in this phase, it causes all the ads just to funnel in a straight line towards the raid. This makes it incredibly easy for one of your tanks to simply soak them and remove them from the fight. The coalesced bloods, however, are the most important. These guys must be picked up by the tank, and while they're alive, they'll consistently spawn bloodstorms. These work similar to the plasma discharge patches.
So you just kill the
tank
ads.
must slowly move the ads around the platform, making sure that they maximize the area that the raid has to play in. Meanwhile, DPS need to nuke the ads down before it becomes too overwhelming and you run out of space.
So here's what's happening here. You've got the coalesced ads that you need to just like damage down as melee, right? And you're like rotating around. And then these ads run towards a random player, and then the tank stands in front of it and absorbs the explosion whenever this mob hits its closest target. So it's the exact same as the heroic Taloc ads that would spawn in Firelands.
Of course, being stacked so the volatile droplets can be effectively soaked away from the raid by another tank. Once the elevator has finally reached the bottom, the boss will become active again and knock everyone off the elevator. At the exact same time, any pools that are left in the elevator area will despawn, and also half the time kill off any ads that are left over. We're not sure exactly what Blizzard are going to do for this for live, if the ads are going to die to this stomp or not, because on half our attempts they just didn't. But if you do transition with the ads, it's so important that you kill them first, because dealing with a boss in this last phase with all of his mechanics, as well as having to move all these ads around the room just to make sure that the puddles are in the right place, is definitely a bit chaotic.
Makes
so kill
sense.
off the ads first, and then you can swap to the boss to begin the phase. The fight now goes back to phase 1, but you have a much larger room to work in. We decided to place the plasma discharge patches behind the raid from this point onwards, and slowly rotated the boss around the outside of the room. As for the Cudgel of Gore charge on the tank, we pretty much ignored the patches unless they were easy to get to, and just made sure the boss was always more than 30 yards away from the raid. We spent a good 5 minutes in this last phase multiple times, and still was not even close to running out of room.
That's a long
fight. Now the
fight.
only difference in this final area is that the volatile drops will continue to spawn around the edges of the room. Again, we just had a single tank go out and soak them, but
Green's gonna
ultimately
get 'em.
anyone can.
Easy.
They're not really that lethal. But that's all it is for this last phase.
Okay.
It's almost identical to phase 1, except you have a much bigger room, and you have to soak a couple of little ads every now and then.
That's not hard at
But
all.
let's leave some feedback. What do we think of this encounter?
So first bosses are very important. You've got to find a balance in making the fight relatively easy, so like new people can come in and still experience the raid, but you've also got to set a good tone for the rest of the instance, and we think they've actually done a particularly good job here. The majority of first bosses are primarily static and require you just to deal with basic mechanics, like think of Nithendra, Scorpion, or maybe to a lesser extent, Grassy Wellbreaker as well. But this boss having multiple phases and an elevator ride between two rooms, that's just so fantastic. It looks amazing. I'd say that the first room itself is like a perfect size, like our first pool.
Do you guys care about the feedback, or do you want to just go right to the, what do you call it? Right to the next boss? Okay, nobody cares about that? Yeah, okay. So here's basically the way that I see it, right? So he spawns at the beginning of the fight. We'll just look at what happens. So he spawns. You have to get these debuffs. You take him out of the raid. It's pretty simple. The guide was made before... Wait. Before huge mechanics were added? Wait, what? Okay, well then what's the most recent guide? I'm confused. The beam isn't there. Wait, what beam? Is there a better guide that I can use? Old Year Guide Taloc. Let me see if this works. 6 days ago. Oh, well, maybe I should just use these. Yeah, I mean, let's see what this one is.
Hi, I'm Hazel, and this is a guide to the Taloc raid boss in Old Year on normal and heroic difficulty. This is the first boss of the first raid of BFA. He's a Titan construct that's supposed to be guarding this place and keeping the scary stuff in. That's clearly going great. Some first bosses are a bit of a gimme, and this is not one of them. The key to phase 1 is space management, which is a fancy way to say put your goo with the other goo. Keep it all together. Plasma discharge will target several people with these dark red circles, and they've got about 4 seconds to get out before they start dropping blood pools. Have a designated side of the room to put those in, keep them as tight together as possible, and if you have a big defensive cooldown, consider using it to run your discharge right on top of the existing blood.
Discharge?
Do that at your own risk, though. This stuff hurts. You'll
Okay.
face a direction and cast Sanguine Static, which fires out these blood waves. Those do damage and knockback if they get you, which is even more embarrassing if it kicks you into a blood pool.
That's very different.
Cudgel of Gore is the big tank mechanic, although it's also kind of an everyone mechanic, so don't skip ahead yet. He'll put this arrow over one of the tanks, and after 4.5 seconds, charge their location and smash down his weapon. That clears all Bloodstorms in 18 yards, so the tank should run it into a filled part of the room to clear space.
Smart.
It also does massive raid damage that drops off with distance, so if you're not the tank, you want to be as far from that as you can get.
That's
Laying
smart.
down a
Wow,
raid marker
okay.
for the blood drop location and then a safe zone to stack during cudgel on the opposite side make this easy to coordinate. 20 seconds or so after dropping his weapon,
Okay.
he'll regret his decision and use Retrieve Cudgel. The boss charges to the location of his weapon, doing big damage and a knockback to anyone in his way. Don't be in his way. At 60%
So you
health,
don't
we
drop
move into
blood
phase
next
2.
to the
floor
next to
starts
the maze.
descending, and this is officially an elevator boss.
Okay.
You can fall off the edges, and I don't recommend it. During this part, Taloc is powered down, taking 99%
That's
less
crazy.
damage and having a little break. He won't attack, so don't worry about him for a bit. Uldir defensive beams will crisscross the elevator shaft. Look down around the edge of the platform and you'll see them coming. They'll pass through the platform as you descend, and they're devastating if you get hit, so check where they are and be somewhere safe.
Okay.
That gets trickier when you factor in the main elevator mechanic, which is a fun set of new adds. Coalesced bloods will
Are they
spawn
really
and
fun?
leave blood patches under them as they move. A tank should
Okay.
pick them up and slowly drag them around the border of the platform while everybody nukes them down. Healing and ad positioning is way easier in this phase if everyone stacks up, so form a tight group near the edge of the platform, keep an eye on incoming beams, and move together. Volatile droplets will fixate a player and ooze towards them, which should be towards the stack if everyone is grouped. When they touch any player, they'll pop and disappear, doing some damage in a 5-yard knockback. The off-tank, or
so you can
anybody
get
that's
knocked
free
off the
and can
edge.
take the hit, should run forward into
That's
the
good,
ad pocket
dude.
before it reaches the
You
group.
get knocked off the
Make
elevator.
sure that you're at least 5 yards clear of other players and
All
also
right.
the edge to avoid kicking yourself or your friends to their deaths. The elevator phase is by far the
Okay.
most difficult part of this fight, so if you can get through that, you're doing great. When the elevator
just
is
like most
almost
raids.
touched down, you can jump off the last bit yourself to avoid getting stunned. Once
Okay.
you're at the bottom, the boss wakes up and you enter the final phase. This
Down
is basically
low.
just phase 1, but with more space, and the fixate adds from the elevator will continue to spawn. Keep in mind that you can stun them, and that the damage from running into them is honestly fine as long as you're topped off in health and not bursting them near stacks of players. Aside from that, keep your hat on,
Okay.
group up the blood, avoid the cudgel of gore, and you've got yourself a dead boss. This fight is mechanically identical between normal and heroic, which should make this a reasonable fight for normal guilds and pugs to farm on heroic for loot. Once your raids
Yep.
learned how to manage the blood pools, the biggest thing will be the DPS check of killing ads quickly. So that is Taloc in Uldir. Thanks for watching. If this video helped you out, please consider leaving me a like. Check out my channel for more raid guides and other WoW stuff, and have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye!
That's good. We have the squirrel in there.
Full day.
You know,
Bye.
just keep
This
things,
fight is
keep things a little
mechanically
exciting. So this is obviously, basically he throws the hammer, he gets the hammer, you don't need to be near the hammer, you're dead, and then he gets all the way down, and then he does the balls, don't get hit by those unless you do get hit by those, which is okay, just make sure you don't get knocked off. And then there's the other guys, you gotta kill those, then you come back, he does the same thing with more balls. So this is a pretty easy fight, okay? Obviously there's like a couple of skill things that are going to be required in terms of like positioning him as like a triangle with like the boss, the hammer, and then the raid. But besides that, it seems like it's going to be pretty simple, pretty straightforward.